If we all sing one song of love, one song of peace, one song to make all our troubles cease, one hymn, one theme, one voice, one dream. Imagine what tomorrow would bring if we all would sing one song. If we all learn the words, just think how great the sound would be. And since the song is in freedom's key, one voice you'd hear, so pure, so clear. Imagine what tomorrow would bring if we all would sing one song. There's just one sun that warms our day, the same moon and stars that lights our way. This little ball world in space, it's our only home, our only place. If we all sing one song of love, one song of peace, one song to make our troubles cease. Imagine what tomorrow will bring if we all sing one song. One song of love, one song to make all our troubles cease. Imagine what tomorrow will bring. Just imagine what tomorrow will bring. Imagine what tomorrow will bring if we all sing one song. One song.
Welcome to the Cathedral of the Assumption. My name is Father Michael Wimsett, and it's a great privilege to welcome you to this holy place during these holy days that begin tonight. I understand that words of thanks often wait until the end of a gathering such as this, but I'd like to say a word of thanks here at the beginning to the men and women of the Center for Interfaith Relations who make the possibility of tonight a reality. I'm uniquely situated to offer thanks to them because we are neighbors here on this cathedral campus. I live in the building just to your immediate right, and they work just a few feet away from me in the same building. For most of my tenure here since this past June, I've thought that I lived there and they worked in that building. But lately, as they've begun to work more and more, longer and longer hours, I think maybe they live there too, in the same place with me. They've worked very hard and they deserve our congratulations even here at the beginning. So thank you for making this possible. The notion of being neighbors is a kindred concept to the Festival of Faiths, and it begins with the reality that on this planet, which is so generous and life-giving to us, we are neighbors. But it continues beyond to the reality that in the spiritual life, in the spiritual sense, we are more than neighbors. We are brothers and sisters, members of a common human family made in the image and likeness of God. Tonight we celebrate that we are neighbors. And as a priest, I believe a great deal in beginner's grace. We undertake so many new beginnings in life that we know we are in need of providence's assistance at the beginning. So I would invite you now to join me in prayer as we ask for God's blessing to be upon us. Let us pray. We give you thanks, Almighty God, for the gift of life you bless us with this day, and for the goodness you show us all in drawing our lives together here this evening. Bless our lives with divine possibility, with the clarity of mind and purity of heart necessary to seek and understand your will. Grant that in our company these days we might be reminded of the love and affection you surround us with and the virtues you call us to. Bless us with the light of compassion necessary to see our world, our brothers and sisters, and you more clearly. Amen.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming, and we're so glad to have you here in Louisville. We're back again at the wonderful Festival of Faiths that we have. Just a few thank yous as I start. I want to thank the chair of the Center for Interfaith Relations, Owsley Brown, for the tremendous work that you've done pulling this festival together. Attorney from the board, Sarah Harris, the team, everybody that puts this together, as I think is one of the world's great gatherings every year. I also want to thank Ambassador Shabazz for orchestrating this wonderful event here. Compassion, shining like the sun. And as a nearly lifelong Louisvillian, my roots naturally are intertwined with my hometown. In fact, the year I was born, 1958, is the same year Thomas Merton had his famous epiphany right around the corner, at the corner of 4th and what is now Muhammad Ali Boulevard. And it's only appropriate that here in our City of Interfaith celebration, that the epiphany by a Catholic Trappist monk happened on a street that is now named for a famous Islamic boxer, Muhammad Ali. So if we could transport ourselves back to 1958. Merton was surrounded by people shopping and going to and fro on what was a busy downtown street when he found himself, quote, overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all these people, that they were mine and I was theirs, that we could not be alien to one another even though we were total strangers. He also wrote in his diary, quote, it was like waking from a dream of separateness. This sense of liberation from an illusory difference was such a relief and such a joy to me that I almost laughed out loud. And here's the line that has inspired me for decades and gives this gathering, this festival, its theme. If only everybody could realize this, but it cannot be explained. There is no way of telling people that they are all walking around shining like the sun. One of my goals as mayor is actually to take on the challenge that Thomas Merton so eloquently describes, to help people see the light shining within themselves and to help them see it in one another. That's what we call compassion here in Louisville. Doing what you can so that other people can reach their full human potential. It's an action word, compassion. Over the decades, like all Louisvillians, I got to watch as our most famous son, Muhammad Ali, became a world champion humanitarian. The man we call the greatest left his hometown and the world an unparalleled legacy of compassion. As mayor, I talked about compassion in my inaugural address 6 years ago. Not everybody thought that was a good idea, but Christy Brown did. And I listened to her, and I'm so glad that I did. Our city has taken great pride since then in the achievements that we've all made together as one big compassionate city. Our Give a Day week of service, inspired by my mom, has grown from a few hundred volunteers in 2011 to breaking our own world record for compassion last year with 175,000 volunteers and acts of compassion. We're in Give a Day week right now, and I expect that we're going to break that record again. We're the home of another groundbreaking education effort around compassion, the Compassionate Schools Project, led by Owsley Brown. It's an innovative curriculum that teaches mindfulness and compassion and empathy to kids as a way to help them become better learners and better citizens in the classroom. Louisville's been named an International Model City of Compassion 5 years in a row. Representatives from more than 40 cities have visited Louisville to study our work in compassion. And we're looking forward to the launch of the International Center for Compassionate Cities. We've got a lot of work to do. I'll always be the first to admit that. But I am proud of what we've accomplished and the sense of momentum I feel when I think about the work that lies ahead. Because the truth is that in our city and around the world, there are people of every faith, every demographic and description who are still starved for compassion in their everyday lives. Some don't perceive compassion from others. Some don't allow themselves to feel compassion for others. As mayor, I see that hunger for compassion in the eyes of kids whose friends or family members have fallen victim to gun violence. I hear it in the voices of immigrants describing bitter insults they've heard in a grocery store parking lot. Merton talked about this waking from a dream of separateness. There are leaders today in our world, in our country, so-called leaders, elected and otherwise, who believe in a harsh, Darwinian world. They encourage their followers to separate from and even shun those who are different. At the same time, there are, and there always have been, those of us who believe in the power of compassion and human connection, who believe that true citizenship means helping others without asking anything in return. Today's economic, social, and technological changes present us with opportunities and challenges unlike anything that we've ever seen. That's why there has never been a more important time for us to make our voices heard. We have to encourage each other, stand up for each other, for our friends, our neighbors, and maybe most important of all, for those that we don't know, that might be down on their luck. We are all connected. We also have leaders elected and otherwise who believe in compassion. I'm talking about politicians, judges, journalists. We have to let them know that we need their compassion, their courage, their conscience. We believe in them, we appreciate them, we have their backs. It's all of our jobs to talk about these human values of compassion, kindness, and love. That's what we all have in common. And that's why we need festivals, or that's why we need gatherings like this Festival of Faiths, so we can come together, nourish, and renew our faith in ourselves and one another in the work of connecting people in our community and around the world. As mayor of this city, I'm honored to welcome you all here to the heart of the compassionate city, the hometown of Muhammad Ali, and the site of Thomas Merton's great epiphany. Here we welcome the world with our shared global future with open arms. Because in our city, the city of Louisville, we know what it takes to reach our full potential. We stand together, we work together, and we shine together. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mayor, for those words of inspiration. And you shine like the sun, and we are reflected in turn. I'm Turney Berry, the chairman of the Center for Interfaith Relations, and I always enjoy the opportunity to remind myself, and I hope you, of why we are here. And by that I mean literally here, in this place, with these events. Why and how did a Methodist boy from Tennessee come to be able to greet you, people of all faiths from every corner of the globe, in this historic Catholic cathedral? And the reason is in large measure because some 30 years ago, the then Archbishop of Louisville, Archbishop Thomas Kelly, realized that this space ought not only be the home of the parish and the seat of the diocese, but it should be what it is tonight and what it will be this week and what we've had the opportunity to use it for over the last 22 years as we've had festivals of faith. It is great, sacred, civic space available to enable us to celebrate the diversity that we find in our community and throughout the world by inviting all of us to come in and remember what it is to be diverse and to celebrate the notion that although we have many faiths, we do operate with one heart, and we collectively take common action. We make great progress. We think we improve every year. We expand what we do, and we do that because of all of you and your attention. Along the way, it's important to remember those who have helped us so much. In some years, we have particular people whom it's appropriate to remember because they have been with us for many years and no longer are in a physical sense. This year, we have a very particular volunteer that we ask you to remember. Her name is Rowan Victor, and it's my privilege to call upon our founder, Christy Brown, who knew Rowan for 45 years, to speak about her and about this project.
Thank you, Turney. As I look out at this from this beautiful altar, I don't often have the opportunity to stand actually in this spot. And so I see your magnificent view, Father, that you have every day from here. It's a very inspiring one. Yes, Rowan Victor was one of my earliest friends, and the reason that we became friends are probably twofold. One is that she deeply, deeply loved Louisville, Kentucky, and she spent, I would say, every day of her life attempting to help Louisville mature in a way that she felt was needed and appropriate. Rowan hailed from a very long Jewish tradition, and it was a Jewish tradition that she was very proud of. I was raised in a Catholic tradition, and quite frankly, I had a wonderful roommate at my little college experience who was Jewish, but she was the first Jewish friend I had, and I would say Rowan was my second. And Rowan, along the way, quickly made me very aware, as she did everyone she touched, that it was extremely important that we care for one another, but really that we also learn from one another through our faith traditions. So it was in great part because of Rowan and her dear husband, Carl, known as Buzzy, who also is in heaven, I'm convinced. That's Christy's interpretation of our next life. I'm convinced that they are now there looking down upon us with my glorious husband, Owsley. And they're saying to us, go forth. Continue to understand that you, in fact, each and every one of you, you are the individuals that can and will change the health of this world. Because clearly you understand that the spiritual health of not just our community, but of each of your own selves and of your family and of your religious communities are vitally important and the key ingredients to getting that peaceful, loving world that we so desperately need. So she's thanking you for being here. She always sat in the front row with her husband looking so elegant at these celebrations because she knew that this was a tradition, this festival and all of this interfaith work was a tradition that should be emulated around the world. And she knew that each of you from Australia or from England or from Denmark or from wherever you're hailing from, that ultimately we would be planting with you seeds of loving thy neighbor as thyself. And so Rowan is here with us, and she's asking each of us to call upon our own personal faith tradition. And for those of us that might not have one, to call upon our inner souls, regardless of having one or not, and to find the way for our journey of helping each one of us becoming instruments of peace. Thank you for remembering Rowan.
I believe in the innate good in all people. Programs like the Festival of Faiths act as a catalyst to inspire us to use our inner good to reach out into the world and create positive action. By respecting all cultures, we open ourselves to the good that other people elicit upon us, bettering ourselves and those around us. The most important thing for me to do as a young person is to show an immense level of caring for everyone, and to inspire people to do the same. In honor of Mrs. Victor and all the many dedicated people that have gone before us, I would like to dedicate this poem, We Remember Them, by Sylvian Commons and Rabbi Jack Reamer. At the rising sun and at its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of the autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live. For now they are part of us as we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have joy that we crave to share, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. For as long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. Thank you.
My My name is Gisdacia Hernandez, and I am an 18 years old born in Cuba. I love my country, my culture, and everything is meant to be Cuban. All of who I am today is thanks to all my experience I had in my mother country. I am also grateful to my parents to giving me the opportunity to be here in the United States with you, my classmates, and many new friends. This country increased my opportunity, my knowledge, my greatness, and all my expectations of what will be a magnificent life, not only for me, but also for my family. I feel very proud to be Cuban and American. It is great to be able to enjoy both cultures, not only just mine, but the old culture that this country welcomes. That includes every person who leaves their home to be here in the United States to do better and to improve for good. For me, the best things about being in Louisville, Kentucky is the variety and the originality we all have as individuals and together. That's made us exceptional because we're here with the same goal. In our thoughts and memory, we must always honor who we are and where we come from, our roots, because keeping the traditions of our grandparents always will be important. Even though we come from another country, it does not mean we do not belong where we are now. It just means that being from different places, we bring the gift that made us shine as a sun.
In today's society, religion and culture still play the roles they have played in the past, uniting people and forming communities which support their members. A person's culture and religion is an integral part of themselves. To understand others and to empathize with others, we as a society need to respect these aspects of the human experience. My life shines a light for others in that I can share my own experiences with younger people. I'm the president of my school's GSTA, and I've learned knowledge and representation are two of the things people who are afraid or confused or living in fear strive for most. If I can live by example, if I can share all that I've learned, then I can shine a light.
Hope. Everyone says that the youth are the future, and I'd like to help make a future that both accepts responsibility for the wrongs of the past and moves on to finding and installing new solutions. I believe if we are able to see a more humanized version of all people rather than through the lens of racism and classism, we'd be more open to differing ideas and ideals. But this can only begin by giving all people the respect that is due to them simply by being human. I want to be part of creating a society that celebrates diversity and grows for it. I want a future, no, I want a present where we can all feel wanted and safe.
Somewhere in the world this morning, someone's fighting religion or race. But there's only one race and we're human. So let's make this world a better place. It's about time we find the good in our brothers this time. It's about time to be colorblind. Just close your eyes, you'll see our hearts are the same, you and me. It's about time to be colorblind. Skinheads, gangs, and dealers peddle their ways of hate. Come on, let's all come together before it's too late. It's about time we find the good in our brothers this time. It's about time to be colorblind.
Rachel Dolan. Homage. Should marriage be between a man and a woman? She lived near McKinney, Texas. Homage. In a world where diversity and color is so polarized, do you see color?
Do I see color? The new colorblind isn't about ignoring color. It's about seeing beyond the stereotypes of color, to see each other for who we actually are. It's about seeing the vitality of diversity in our skin, in our language, our culture, our gender, our faith. There's an intelligence that lies beyond our antiquated fears of one another, and that intelligence is love. It's about time we find the good in the brothers this earth. Your eyes will see.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ahmed Dohast. I'm 15 years old, student at GCBS Newcomer Academy, and I was born in Syria. Homeland is like the mother who gives us life as we come into this world, the mother who teaches us about having nice life, about its many good and loving people, about our languages and meanings of our names, all from the moment we were born until the present. The motherland has given us culture, the joy and feelings of holidays and traditions, the best moments of our childhood, the best second to sing and dance and to hold into our nationalities, our flag, our faith, and our humanities, together with our new culture here in Louisville, Kentucky. My own mother taught us how to share equal respect between our new family in Louisville and our homeland. She reminds us that our gifts and lessons from our homeland prepared us how to be honest and compassionate in the city where her children will now realize their future and achieve all of our dreams. Louisville is where we can unite our nationalism and civility with a home that provides many opportunities and values, such as my humanity and spending time with my many friends and learning new languages. Louisville is like the most beautiful girl in the world who holds my heart like a poem for years and years, just like the love I have for my homeland. And yet who made me feel so relaxed when I was saying the pledge at my school. Homs, the capital of jasmine in the Middle East, is my loving city in Syria that feels like paradise with the nicest smell of jasmine in the gardens every morning. Louisville reminds me of Homs. These two cities have made me strongest person in the world. Each has encouraged me to smile without giving up as I wrestled with life, failing and failing, then being strong and becoming the winner. Homs, Syria, and Louisville, Kentucky have both strengthened my humanity, and I can't wait to tell the people about a nice story of little boy who survived and inspire my new friends how to be peaceful and strong, to work on their future, their dreams, and their lives to shine like the sun.
I am born to stand for what's right. Even at my age of 13, I speak out against injustices and defend those who cannot defend themselves. I encourage my own peers to believe in themselves and other young people to welcome those who are different. We should live in a world where people are accepted regardless of ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, or politics. It's important to respect a person's faith and culture. The freedom to be who we are is what makes our country beautiful and unique. Louisville is a great example of that. I hope to serve as a role model for children of all ages and cultures. I encourage them to learn more about their true history. It will give us all more confidence. I try to shine a light for others, even at my age. I know that I am born to be a leader. Just imagine me.
This song is dedicated to people like me, those that struggle with insecurities, acceptance, and even low self-esteem. You've never felt good enough. You've never felt pretty enough. But imagine God whispering in your ear and letting you know that everything that has happened now.
It's gone. It's gone.
It's all gone.
All gone.
Every sin,
It's gone.
every failure,
It's gone.
every mistake.
It's gone.
It's all
Can't
gone.
believe it's
Depression,
gone.
gone.
It's gone.
By faith,
It's gone.
it's gone.
All gone.
Hallelujah.
It's gone.
All gone.
It's gone.
Self-esteem.
It's gone.
It's all gone.
All gone.
It's all gone.
It's gone.
All my sins, all my scars, yesterday is in the past. Hallelujah. It's all gone. What your mother did, what your father did, what your brother did. Hallelujah. It's all gone. It's all gone. It's all gone.
Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Na 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 na. Oh, na na. Oh, na 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 na.
Can you imagine me?
Having my original culture, faith, values, and heritage stripped from my forefathers as an African American, I've embarked on my own journey to retrace my heritage. I understand the value of self-identity and have a great deal of respect for other cultures. Respecting a human being because of their faith or their culture should not fit a role or a mold, but should be obligatory or instinctive, as one is authentically inspired to do so. Any lack of respect for our brothers and sisters is born out of ignorance, and it is this ignorance unchecked over a span of a lifetime that continually recycles hatred. This society, we as citizens, and the world that we have shaped, should look in the mirror and ask, who am I not to respect someone because of their culture or faith? My beloved relative and global icon, Muhammad Ali, once said, "We all have the same God. We just serve him differently." Rivers, lakes, ponds, streams, all different names, but they contain water. So do religions have different names, and yet they all contain truth. Truth expressed in different ways, different forms, and at different times. It doesn't matter whether you're a Jew, a Muslim, or a Christian. When you believe in God, you should believe that all of us are part of one family. And if you love God, you can't love only some of his children. Thank you.
This dream I'm dreaming, there's a voice inside my head that says that
you'll never reach it. Every step I'm taking, every move I make, feel lost with no direction. My faith is shaking, but I gotta be strong. Gotta keep my head held high. There's always gonna be another mountain. I'm always gonna wanna make it move. There's always gonna be an uphill battle, and sometime I'm gonna have to lose. Ain't about how fast I get there. It ain't about what's waiting on the other side. It's the climb. See, I gotta be stronger. Oh yeah, gotta keep my head held high. There's always gonna be another mountain. I'm always gonna wanna make it move. There's always gonna be an uphill battle, and sometime I'm gonna have to lose. Ain't about how fast I get there. It ain't about what's waiting on the other side. It's the climb.
Whew. Makes you want to proclaim something. Well, good evening, all whom have gathered. I'd like to thank those in advance for entrusting an evening such as this in the hands of a weary me. And I say weary because in real life, we're porous. It means that we're absorbing things, the good and the bad, all the time. And amidst the linear, there's always something beckoning. And for me, I've been blessed by having the seed orientation, meaning parents, grandparents, the people around me. That was the nurturing I had from day one in my life. And so that no matter how challenging, no matter how tough, no matter how sad or troubled, I always know that somewhere out there is the glow, it's the shine, it's the love, it's the yes that beckons, it's the smile, it's the gift. And so I want to stand here now and say thank you for all of those who responded in such short notice. The young people that you heard from, these are their words, so we have to listen. I didn't have to do much editing. It was their sentiments. Asked 3 questions, and they sent it back. And I thought, how honest. None of them are old enough to vote, and yet they have a yearning for which we have a responsibility to. We have to listen. And for Center for Interfaith Relations, I don't know why you asked me to do this. It was in print before I knew it. And I want to say thank you because it did push me to engage and conjure and unleash that which was buried for a while. You know, when you have losses, when you have loads, sometimes you're in autopilot just to get things done, and then you have to move a little more. And what I thought of, I've been asking, who should be the keynote speaker? What was customary? Would you allow this Muslim to stand at your podium in your beautiful cathedral and narrate or curate? Would you entrust that? And I want to say thank you for saying yes. For Father Michael, for standing in your house. for all of Louisville, for the mayor, for the Browns, for pushing this forward, for the young ones that, can you stand up one more time? The young people. Thank you. You know, when we were trying to figure out what would be a natural weave and not just a put together, what would enable message, mission, song, music to come together and feel like, even if you've just met, that you're some kind of kin. And there were a couple of people that came to my mind as I was drafting things, and I kept dismissing it. I kept putting it away, saying it's probably not possible. And then it was. 3 weeks ago, I received a response from our keynote speaker. And I thought it was an answer. Because in the numbness, how many of you function numb sometimes in autopilot? Sometimes in there, if you pause, if you're still enough, the answer is always there. Sometimes we dismiss it, we second guess it, but it's always there. And so this is a person who some 20 plus years ago, when she hit the television screen, many of us felt a kinship, we felt a sistership from long distance. Not just because she was attractive or smart, not just because she was a woman of color, finally, hallelujah. But it was the authenticity in which she served, spoke, beckoned, translated, transmitted. You felt some kinship with a stranger that suddenly was no longer a stranger. There was a sisterhood. And so I'm one of those persons, I don't use the word fan, but an appreciator of your soul self, your lone self. The times when you have felt isolated, there are many you should know were rooting for your peace of mind, for you to know that there was a kinship in the world out here who appreciated and wanted to say thank you 1,000,000 times over because of your dignity, because of the way you travel the globe and give voice to people who we never would meet, who would never have a word or never touch our lives here. You did that. Sometimes in the challenge, there's always a gift. I'm one that knows that. As I live 52 years now without the very person whose name precedes me, imagine that. So how do we sustain the heartbeat? How do we sustain the life? How do we pump in that which gives us joy and meaning and significance when that which initiated may not be here anymore? We remember them. And to you, Lady Curry, I say thank you for answering short notice, for flying from across the globe and then packing to get over here to share the Festival of Faiths with us in this honorable ceremony. And I welcome you to the stage and to Louisville, Kentucky.
That was honestly one of the most beautiful introductions, and I've given a number of speeches that I've ever heard. Ambassador Shabazz, thank you so much for your incredibly kind words. And I want you to know that I have always wanted to do something for Ambassador Shabazz. It has been within me to want to do something for her because of her good works and also because of the legacy of her great family. And so to me, this talk is an offering, and I'm grateful for that. I'm also want to say that it has been a complete joy to find myself among all of you and listen to your song and to hear your poems and your writings. and to feel this reservoir that you are of humanity, celebrating a festival of faiths, and in these times, focused on compassion. I wonder, would you consider the possibility that you are a part of an ever-rising force for good that is no less than humanity's greatest hope? Let me explain. When one works over the course of decades as a journalist, it is possible to witness terrible human suffering. You see places in this nation where the cruelties of hunger and poverty, and especially indifference, are so deep, so intractable, and generational that the American dream honestly does not have a chance. You may even witness the worst of what we humans can do to each other: war, racism, genocide, the systematic use of violence against women and children. In a lot of places in the world, including Syria and Kosovo and Darfur and Iraq, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Congo, the inhumanity you have witnessed can even haunt you a little. You ask, how can humans be so cruel to each other? At first, the answers you get tend to be exactly the same. There are bad people in the world who do bad things. They're the bad guys, them, not us. We could never do what they did. So then you interview the bad guys. You ask, how could you of the president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, accused of unleashing the genocide in Darfur? You ask essentially the same question at the mountain hideout of the rebel leader Laurent Nkunda, accused of using child soldiers and unleashing war and widespread rape in Congo. You ask the same question of the Serbs who joined in the ethnic cleansing in Kosovo, of a Pakistani president accused of cooperating with Al-Qaeda. And after a time, you begin to see how easily people who even seem sitting across of them, like you and me, how easily they are deluded by the narratives they tell themselves, and how quickly these narratives can blind them to the humanity in their enemies. You realize a truth may be more layered than the idea that there are good guys and bad guys. You hear, for example, the president of Sudan, offended by your how could you question, say with deep conviction that he had to stop a rebel movement that threatened his country, and he was absolutely not guilty of genocide, before then uttering a disparaging remark that makes it pretty clear he doesn't view the black tribesmen as human as he is, the people he is killing. You hear a Serb talk about how many times his country has been invaded throughout history, and then vow that if he was called again, he would again grab his guns and raid homes again to get rid of the people that he said do not belong here. And so on and so on. You hear this anger separating us from them in many places, and increasingly here at home. And you watch it spread, seemingly like a virus, often with devastating consequences. Eventually, this pattern of narratives and delusions is consistent enough to make you wonder, is there some capacity for inhumanity that is deeply rooted in all of us? Is this darkness a part of what it means to be human? If you're curious, and I obviously am, and you study the science on this question, you will not find it comforting. Researchers now tell us that we have evolved to lie, that we alter our memories, which may help us recover from trauma, but which also cause us to remember what actually never happened, and that we are continually adapting our personality so that over time, even core parts of ourselves can change. The controversial Stanford prison experiment showed us that college students, suddenly given the role of prison guards, could, within days, become psychologically abusive to students designated as prisoners. Why? Simply, the researchers said, because of the situation the students were put in. The famous Milgram experiment by Yale researchers concluded that people could be willing to hurt others with electrical shocks, even when it was against their personal beliefs, just because an authority figure told them to do so. And in what I think is one of the most riveting findings, a growing number of scientists has now concluded that about 100,000 years ago, there were no less than 6 species of human beings who existed at the same time on this planet, including Homo sapiens. And these scientists are asking why Homo sapiens are the only humans to survive, when we actually didn't have the biggest brains or even the biggest and strongest bodies. And adding to the mystery, wherever Homo sapiens spread, first from Africa and then to east and up to Asia and then over eventually to Europe, the native populations of these other human species immediately became extinct. In his book *Sapiens*, the author Yuval Harari, a noted historian, argues one theory that competition for resources flared up into violence and genocide makes sense. As he points out, tolerance is not a sapien trademark. But if intolerance is somehow a part of being human, then how do we explain the Oskar Schindlers, the Raoul Wallenbergs, the Chiune Sugihara's, and the Irene Sendlers who saved Jews from Hitler? There were not enough, but there were so many people who have risked their lives to protect people. Jean Damon, a young Catholic woman who previously had not known any Jews, is reported to have risked her life repeatedly to smuggle Jewish children out of Brussels. For every name we can Google, Moses, Jesus, Harriet Tubman, Mahatma Gandhi, Witold Pilecki, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and the newly sainted Mother Teresa, who believed every single man, woman, and child is a child of God. There are countless unknowns who have stood up for others throughout our human history. This, too, you can witness as a journalist. A woman in Darfur, upon seeing a fearsome Janjaweed militia, told her younger sister to run in one direction while she ran in another, raising her hands to draw them to her, even though she was pregnant and knew she could not escape. In the Nuba Mountains in Sudan, you witnessed the moral strength of an elderly woman taking in some 30 orphans to live with her in the caves, to shelter them from her own government's aerial bombing raids, even though she barely has enough money to feed herself, barely has enough food to feed herself. You see humanitarian workers in war zones, volunteers who rescue people from natural disasters, who smuggle food and blankets to this day to Aleppo, who start food pantries for the hungry. And then this too seems to be a pattern. Humans seeing other humans under threat, move in to shield them against suffering, sometimes even at risk to themselves. It makes you then ask, is this compassion a characteristic only of good people, or is this too an intrinsic part of what it means to be human? The cynics among us might be surprised to hear that science says this spark of goodness is deep within the human gene pool. Darwin called our ability to sympathize with others our strongest human instinct, even stronger than self-interest. How is that possible? Science explains that it is this instinct that allows us to make sure that our babies, who were born long before they can fend for themselves, can even survive. Study after study backs this up. One published in the journal Science found that people who spent money on others seemed to be happier than people who spent money on themselves. Another, looking at brain scans, found that the regions involved with positive emotions light up when we help others. We are happier, we breathe deeper, we're more connected to other human beings, our health improves, as does the speed of our recovery from illness. We might even live longer. The Dalai Lama, now 81 years old, will tell you that having compassion for others is, as he puts it, very practical. A University of Michigan study backs this up, finding that people who volunteer tend to live a lot longer than people who don't. It gets even crazier. There is a study that says kindness is a trait that makes you more attractive as a potential mate. Well, now you know why everybody here looks so good today. Studies also tell us compassion is contagious, that when we see it in others, we are inspired ourselves, and that when we practice it, we can strengthen it, which may help explain its variances from person to person. As one researcher from the University of Wisconsin put it, it's kind of like weight training. We found that people can actually build up their compassionate muscle. Well, if that's true, then we can grow it in our children. I often think that it was watching my immigrant mother struggle to feel accepted in America, and my father's efforts to defend her from loneliness and to help her become an American citizen, that helped my young teenage brain to think outside my own needs and grow my compassion. I can still remember in very good detail how deeply happy my mother looked, raising the American flag in front of our little house in Ashland, Oregon, on the day that she found out that she had passed the citizenship test. She felt finally that she belonged. If we step back for a long view of human history, we can actually see humanity's turn toward compassion. Once, atrocities were a fact of war. Now, they're war crimes. Once, orphan children were allowed to sleep outside on the streets of Lower Manhattan, and poor children were made to work in our nation's factories rather than be allowed to go to school. Now we call that child abuse. Once, if people knew that you were gay, you were shunned, you could even be killed in this country. Now you have the same right to thrive in this country as anyone else. And once, people actually posed for photographs in front of people who were lynched African Americans. Photographs to put on postcards to send people they knew. Now, this country has not only elected, it has re-elected its first African American president. And on it goes, not easily, not everywhere, not all at once, but in a slow, persistent way. 2 steps up, 1 step back in humanity's long, steep climb towards greater compassion. Okay, this is going to be a nerdy moment, but recently I decided to study Homer's poem, the long poem called the Iliad, which many of you have read. I know that makes me sound like a bit of a geek, but I think it's kind of cool to read something that's 2,800 years old. And the Iliad tells us about mortal enemies in an epic battle. Achilles, seething with anger, he decides to disfigure Hector, the son of Troy, a son of Troy, making him barely recognizable as a human being. And yet this violent ancient story, popular enough to survive as a poem, recited for centuries before it could be finally written down so that we could all read it, is still woven with compassion so deep for both sides that upon hearing it, perhaps even a Spartan would have felt empathy for a Trojan and vice versa. Fast forward to today in our own time, when we have become so interconnected and globalized and economically interdependent, suddenly, never before has what happens over there mattered over here. And the other way around. And as our world has expanded, so has how we see ourselves. If, as one scientist has said, that we once reserved our compassion only for our own families and our own communities, essentially people who look like us, this has become less true. Terrible human tragedies like a tsunami in Southeast Asia or an earthquake in Haiti have suddenly moved people all over the world to help. But just as we began to focus on our vast similarities rather than our meager differences on an international scale, suddenly again humankind is edging back. Fear is once again driving away compassion for others. History tells us this is temporary, that humans have eventually climbed back towards compassion over and over and over again. 2 steps up, 1 step down. 2 steps up, 1 step down. As we have gone before, it seems likely that we will go again. But how long is it going to take? How long before we finally understand that we are all each other's sisters and brothers, mothers and fathers, daughters and sons, and that we are all related to each other, connected to the same genetic Adam and Eve, every one of us from one original family that emerged from Eastern Africa? How long before this persistent spark of goodness shines even deeper into the dark? Before more of us are willing to stand up and defend our human family? I don't know. The answers are within us all. I hope your compassion in all of your days to come lets you breathe deeper, be happier, live longer. I hope we all live long enough to see the next step up in humanity's rise. But even if I don't, I know it's going to happen. I hope. Don't you? Thank you.
Gosh. You don't make it easy, Ambassador Shabazz. You do not make it easy, but boy, do you make it good. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Owsley Brown. I have the great honor of being the Festival of Faith's chairperson, and I want to start by thanking you, Ambassador Shabazz. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Mayor Fisher. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Board Chair Turney Berry. Thank all of you for answering Ambassador Shabazz's call. Thank you for receiving our request to come to this incredible space. Thank you, Father Michael, for welcoming us. And as I reflect on what this all means, I think it really gets to the heart of what we're trying to do with this thing we call the Festival of Faiths. Many of you know what that is, and some of you might not know what that is. But let me tell you that it's trying to do nothing more than channel exactly what's happening right here, right now. This is a miracle. And I guess they happen regularly if you are sensitized and pay attention, and maybe they're constantly happening. Maybe this whole thing we call life and our experience is nothing more than the miracle we're told that it is. But the problem, you see, and we do, I think, all recognize the problem, is that we all too often forget to stop and notice. And that's what you've helped us do tonight, Ambassador Shabazz. You've helped us notice by design, by being creative, by doing something my dad used to always encourage. In fact, it was really the highest sort of compliment he could pay anybody And it was really his own, I think, highest aspiration. And since he was so influential in my life, I've sort of not been able to get over this idea that he said, you know, we should all just be a little more imaginative. He loved the idea of exercising our imaginations. He thought that was the greatest thing we could do. And I think what he meant, he probably said it, is that that really is the act of responding to our God-given gifts. Which is to say, simply to imagine something is its own kind of miracle. And then once you get a little comfortable imagining and you start exercising that imagination, seeing what you can do with it becomes, as he would say, a whole lot of fun. And then he would light up, and he would smile. It makes me even teary to think of it, because it was such a beautiful thing to see somebody so happy. And I think that's where the joy part comes in. Joy and happiness, I don't know that you can take them apart. Certainly not true joy or true happiness. It's an interesting question, you know, the truth and the spectrum of what's true and what's not true. And I definitely think there's a thing called relative truth. I mean, I'm sure that's accurate, you know. We each have our version of what's true. And yet, somehow, in the face of what's relatively true to each one of us, it's still possible to recognize something that feels really true. And that's what I think is happening right here, right now. It's incredible. I mean, here we all are. I mean, my mother just said it, but I got to say it again. You all, you know, sorry, Merton. I mean, you're getting a lot of, you know, we're really working you out here tonight. You guys are all shining like the sun from where I'm standing. And that is incredible. And it proves, at least from my point of view, that things are possible. And I know in this day and in this age, it can be hard, really hard, to imagine something that seems impossible. I mean, we can't, you know, it's like we can't even imagine it. And that's incredibly hard. I mean, that is that's the stuff of, you know, the dark night of the soul territory. So what to do with the dark night of the soul? Well, with respect to this festival, what we're trying to do in a way is get at that a little bit and, you know, bring a flashlight, as it were, a torch, as they say on the other side of the pond, you know, just to kind of check it out a little bit. You know, maybe we could find a light switch somewhere. But as many of you may know, and, you know, in this day and age, we live in a, you know, coal-powered, light-filled, you know, urban landscape, most of us, and we don't necessarily walk into the dark, dark, dark. But whether we do literally or not is really not the point, because on the inside, each of us, I'm sure each of us have known what it is to feel the real darkness that is scary and debilitating and life-defining at times. So that's where the faith part comes in. I can't think of a more profound expression somehow of faith than what has happened here, Ambassador Shabazz. It's extraordinary to think of what's happened here. This is so special. And there's special things going on all the time if we pay attention, I think. But you've helped us pay attention. And we should remember that with a little bit of help, amazing things can happen. And back to that darkness part, with a little bit of help, we might be able to take a leap of faith into that dark room. Flashlight wouldn't hurt. And then start looking around a little bit. And that's where the courage part comes in, the guts. It takes guts Nobody said it was going to be easy. I'm fascinated more and more. You know, we all know this 99, or what, let's just say 99, 1%. 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. That there is something very rich in that territory. You know, the idea that inspiration is great and it should be celebrated and we should imagine it, we should go for it, but then what? Then comes the work. And the work is connected, I think, to the courage. And we need to have courage to do the work, which may seem really boring at times or really tough or impossible at times, to just go forward into that dark room and look and see if we can find eventually that light switch, and all of a sudden we can have a whole lot of light in what seemed like a whole lot of darkness. I think if we can do that kind of work, metaphorically speaking, then we are for sure going to be able to do the work of compassion. Compassion, according to an amazing presentation this morning, involves essentially our willingness on our part, our willingness to suffer, that we are willingly taking on the idea of suffering, and that might mean that we are willingly putting ourselves into situations which are uncomfortable, on purpose, by design, because we want to, because we're gutsy enough to do it. And I think that if we do, and here's my spiritual reflection, if we do, the truest and most profound rewards, just like the ones that you have given us tonight, Ambassador Shabazz, by bringing all of these people together. I haven't hung out with all of you all before, but I can tell you I'd sure like to do this again. This is incredible. Here we are. I have learned so much tonight. I am so grateful to be in this room. I am so grateful to each of you. And that's just one man's voice, but I express it simply to say that I don't know that I thought this was possible. And this equals one of the most compassionate experiences I have had. And I think it proves that with courage and guts and purpose, anything is possible, including authentic, real compassion, which I feel sure will lead us to true love. Amen, alleluia, and thank you.
too hot for my God to hold.
No matter what the problem,
No matter what the problem,
God can always solve it.
my God can always solve.
Cast your cares upon him.
Trying today, He will brighten your day, and He'll come your way, and He'll hear you when you
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Wayside Christian Mission down by the Wayside Choir.